Hey, book connectors, let me clarify or explain yesterday's question, which was, do you feel that there are any biblical phrases that are overused or should be retired? That is, I didn't mean literally stop using them or stop leaving in the Bible. My problem was the way in which certain phrases can be used or the way some people use them. Case in point, now, be fruitful and multiply. I actually know some people who think that God literally meant to grow fruit trees. And I'm saying, so when you say fruit, is that the metaphor for babies? No. We actually think he means apple trees, orange trees, lemon trees, cherry trees, stuff like that. And so I'm just sitting here quiet, taking it all in, trying to understand how could I be so wrong? Because I took that phrase to mean have babies. Some people feel like it means have babies until you no longer can. I feel it means have as many babies as you feel you can support financially, get them grown to at least 18. So, and that was my belief then, and that's how I feel it is now. And those people that said it literally meant grow fruit trees still feel like that's what it meant. So that is what I meant by phrases, biblical phrases. Now on to today's question. But first, hey book connectors, welcome back to the Book Connection. I am your host, Blue-Eyed Black Devil. And today's question is this. What does the word friendship mean to you? As soon as I decided I wanted to ask you all this question today, I went online to look for definitions. I wanted two textbooks or a textbook definition of the word. Now, one of the definitions, friendship, is defined as a voluntary mutual friendship between people characterized by trust, affection, and support. And then you go on, and I found one from the APA Dictionary of Psychology, and I may be wrong, so don't quote me on this one, but I'm guessing that the APA stands for American Psychology Association. But their definition of friend is defined as an endearing bond built through shared experiences where individuals meet each other's needs and find mutual joy. So those are the two definitions that I found for the word friendship. Now, as for me, I agree with both of those definitions. I can't complain one bit. My husband is my best friend. But growing up, I thought, well, you could only have one best friend, and I didn't know him when I was growing up. That, I think, is the only reason I wasn't always my best friend. But then as I don't know, when I got in my mid to late 20s, I was just looking back over life, and I was like, you know what? I should have never believed that you could only have one best friend. You know why? Because I find that I have at least 3 best friends outside of my husband. He's always going to get the good, bad, and ugly out of me. But I have one best friend that I talk about this to, and then I have another one where I talk about that with that friend, and then I have another friend who, maybe we talk a little bit about whatever's going on at that time. And they have been friends pretty much all the way throughout my life. Now, there are different times where we can literally go years without speaking. And that's all right with me as long as I know that we are not speaking due to, living life. You may be working, I may be working, I may be whatever. I'm good with that because I know that there's no conflict there. We just say, when we see each other, we laugh and talk, and sometimes it's like we never went years without speaking. And then there is one girl that I grew up with. We were friends. We were like Nut and Jeff, thick and thin. You saw one, you saw both. We just always on there. But I had to cut her off. And it hurt me a lot because I was always at her house on weekends. She was always at my house on weekends. But she is one of these people who, like, if we have a disagreement, she wanted everybody in our friend group to be mad at me. Or if she was mad at someone else, she wanted all of us to be mad at that same person. So, I did that for about a year. I wouldn't talk because she was like, no, don't say nothing to her because blah, 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 blah. Well, at some point, I think it might have gone on for a year. But we got into it about something. I can't remember what it was. But I just threw my hands up and walked off. And then another friend who I have known since we were 5 and 8, one day after we were grown with families of our own, she said, that day you threw your hands up and walked off. That gave me all the courage to do the same because I knew if you were okay with ending the friendship, the relationship, as close as y'all are, then I know it's got to be okay for me. And I don't think they talked much longer after that. I said, well, I didn't want you to just stop speaking to her and stop dealing with it because of me. She said, I didn't. I just didn't know how to, walk off. I said, well, yeah, I guess I can understand that because it's been a few times we have been into it. And, I don't necessarily think it was always one person's fault. We just disagreed. But I'm like this, if I fall out with you and I'm mutual friends with everybody else, well, I don't need them to stop talking to you because I'm mad at you. All right. So that happened when we were in the 9th grade. I did not speak to her again for over 20 plus years. And it might be 30, I'm not sure. But one of my sisters turned 50 4 years ago in August. And she didn't plan to do anything. But her, here I go using this word again, boyfriend. I use it as a lack of a better word. But he was like, no. He said, you need to do something. I'm going to get you out of the cabin. And you get your sisters and your 2 best friends. And y'all just go enjoy the weekend. So that's what we did. Well, time we crossed the Tennessee state line, they pulled over because there was a lot of different cars pulled over at the gas station. And my sister hopped out of the car she was in and she said, you need to go try to use the bathroom because they said we're not stopping now. We're going straight into Gatlinburg, which was still about another 2.5 hours, maybe 2 hours, 45 minutes down the road. I didn't have to use the bathroom, but I did decide to go and try. And I'm glad I did because I did tinkle a little bit. I come out the bathroom and that same sister says, hey, this guy says he's from where you went to school. And I said, so? But I don't know why I said it the way I did. But I got to the cash register and I was like, by any chance, would you happen to know this community, this area of town? And he said, yeah. I said, oh, okay, then we may be on to something. And I said, well, by any chance, do you have any sisters? He said, he started rubbing his head, then he was scratching his chin, and he said, yeah, I got a whole lot of them. He said, I got one name, and the first sister he named was the one I was looking for. When he called her by name, all of my sisters and I, we were like, bingo, yes, that's us. That's who we're looking for. And I was like, I grew up with her. We did this, that, and the other. He's like, yeah, he said, I just don't remember ever meeting you. And I said, no, I don't know you either. And so we talked, and then so we would tell them some things that had gone on in the family and stuff. He's like, you really do know that family? Yeah, we do. So I asked him to take, if he would give me his sister's number, and he did. I didn't call her that Friday, but we got back from shopping Saturday. I went in there in the room and I called her, and we talked probably for about 4 hours. I mean, because we had, like I say, 20, 30, possibly 40 years worth of info to catch up. And she said, yeah, he said he didn't know you, and you told him you didn't know him either. And she said, that's because he's my dad's child. He's not my mom's child. I said, oh, okay. And to myself, I was thinking, but shoot, they had 12 children altogether, he and his wife. 8 made it to adulthood. Yeah, going back to that question I was talking about at the top of this video, when I say have only the number of kids you feel like you can afford, that stuff like that is what I mean. But after we got back together as friends, she went on to tell me that her dad fathered 12 other children by 5 other women, and he was married the entire time. I said, so if all of them had lived, your dad would have been the father of 24 children. And when I said that, my husband was working on the house. He was doing something. He came by there just as I said, 24 children. He like, dang, the D word. I was killing myself laughing. I'm like, how do you do it? But, after the weekend was over, we got home, and we were telling Mom that I ran into one of her brothers. And my mom told me something I'd never heard before. Which is, she said one time she took me over to her house because both of us we were both cheerleaders. And so I went over to her house one Friday because we had a competition that Saturday. Now, I went there, and she said that she talked to her mother and asked her if it would be a problem if I came over some weekends, because if I wasn't cheering, I was swimming. Wasn't swimming, I was just band and music concerts and courses. So, chances are, and if we got back early on Saturday morning, my mom would come and get me. But if we didn't get back, which was more often the case, we wouldn't get back till after dark on Saturdays. And so I would just go home with her. And so her mom was like, that won't be a problem. She said, what does she like to eat? Mama told her pinto beans and cornbread, because that's all I really would eat. And so she was explaining to her a little bit about what I had been through. And she said they force fed her some eggs one day. And if it happens again, I guess we gonna be the court because it's gonna be some welfare butts up in that camp. You cannot do that. This girl has medical reasons. You can't just make her eat stuff. And I was and still am very picky, but it just so happens that I didn't really care for eggs to begin with anyway. So when that happened, I still just do not care for eggs. If I eat one, I eat it better if it's boiled. But if I just have to eat a scrambled egg, I got to have plenty of toast and meat in them. I cannot just stomach the taste of eggs. And not so much because the eggs were that bad. It was because of the negative thing that happened as a result of being force-fed. So the lady said, her mom said, yeah. She was like, but I'll pay you. I will pay you. Just tell me what you charge. She's like, I wish I would charge you. She said, Renee is in and out here all the time anyway. They stay in some. So she's doesn't eat much. And so all these kids, they ain't gonna miss whatever she eat. And so I didn't know that until 4 years ago for the first time. So when my friend and I reunited, I asked her if her mom had ever told her that. I told her what my mama said. She said, no, she never told me that one. She said, but you know she would. She would feed anybody. And much as we in and out, up and down that school and the highway, and you know, I used to go home with you, and so I wasn't surprised that she said that. I just didn't know that she did. And so it kind of got sad when in the end we ended up not speaking for all of these years. Her mother passed away from Alzheimer's, I want to say about 9 years ago. And she said every day she'd come home from work and her mom was like, you don't know how to get in touch. You don't know how to get in touch with Renee. She would be like, Mama, I ask people at work and they say they don't know how to get in touch with her either. And so this just went on. She said, yes, she died. But she had moments of clarity. She always asked about you and stuff. And then I said, I always thought her mom was so pretty, and she was. And she was also sweet. And I'm pretty sure when we broke up, it hurt her as much as it did me. But at some point, I knew in order for me to be okay with me, I had to cut her off. But now we're friends. All these years again, we reconnected, and I still pretty much take things with a grain of salt because I do know that I know Bobby fell out, and so I just kind of hear what she says. Don't get me wrong, but I don't care to like be talking to her every day or every week. And she called yesterday, the first time, since May. And we talked for a long time now. I might not talk to her again till about October, who knows. But as long as I know that we are okay, like we can go for years without speaking, long as we're not mad. Now, after all of that, I've stayed friends with pretty much, okay, I do have two groups of friends. I have my high school and all of my schooling friends, and then I have a group of college friends. Now, I don't hear from my college friends as much as I hear from my school friends, but whenever I do hear from my college friends, we just laugh and talk about things we did when we were in college. And now we have real issues. We thought we were going through stuff in college, but now we're married. We have families, there's been divorces and this, that, and the other. But we all know that we have each other in the end. So, and then I have one of my really good friends is very standoffish, aloof. But if you can ever get her to drop those walls, she is one of the best people. You won't find a dear friend in her. And I know how she is, so I'm not offended if I don't hear from her. And some things has gone on in the last 4 or 5 years that I didn't know, and it kind of bothered me because I couldn't believe she didn't call and tell me that her mom had passed away. But okay, that's the friend I know who just kind of shuts down and won't. But if I pick up the phone and call her now, she hasn't changed her number. I haven't changed mine. But if I pick up the phone and call her, she'll pick up. And I guess at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And when I did talk to her, we talked about it. She did have a lot going on. She lost both parents within 2 weeks. So, people just don't have time to sit up and shoot the breeze. But that's what makes those memories even more precious to me. So, that's my question for today, book connectors. What does the word friendship or either friend, what does that mean? What does that look like for you? Hop down in the comments. Feel free to share with us what it is, and we can have yet another lively conversation. In the meantime, subscribers, thank you so very much for being subscribed. Visitors, thank you for viewing the channel. And if you are subscribed, make sure to remember only share as much as you care to share on this channel. And then everyone, what else? I'm drawing a blank because I say the same thing over and over and over. Okay, I think blah, blah, blah. Please. Okay, yeah. Once you know that you're still subscribed, everyone, please do not forget to like, share, comment respectfully, and by all means, make sure that your notification bells are on and set to all, so you'll know every time I drop another gem. And in the meantime, book connectors, remember this: as long as there are books around, there is always something to read. And until we read or connect again, please be safe out there. Enjoy your Saturday. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy each other. Have a wonderful weekend. And God bless. Thanks for watching and or listening. And bye only for now.